My name is William Kumwembe. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the program Business Time. This is a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. And in the program today, we look at strides African countries are making regarding the African Continental Free Trade Area in as far as trade is concerned. And also in the program, we look at Malawi's positioning in the trade. That's inside Business Time. Hello and welcome to Business Time. In our main story in the program today, African nations are moving towards enhancing trade among and within themselves. This comes as intra-Africa trade is seen at just 20%, and countries are earmarking to enhance the pace to about 50% in the short time possible under the African Continental Free Trade Area. The question that remains is how far have the African nations registered in as far as enhancing the trade is concerned, and what needs to be done to ensure that all the 55 member states are partaking in the trading bloc. These are some of the questions I posed to one of the directors at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat.
Yeah, the AFCFTA has a long history. As you know, negotiations started in 2012 when the decision to establish the AFCFTA was made by heads of state and government. We spent about 3 years getting ready, building the capacities and creating awareness among state parties. In 2015, in June precisely, a roadmap was approved by the heads of state to start negotiations. And it took again about 3 to 4 years to conclude negotiations. And the agreement was signed in 2018 in March. After concluding the agreement, countries had to ratify it for it to enter into force, which took 1 year, 1 full year. In 2019, in May, the AFCFTA agreement came into force. Then that's when we had to almost waste 2 years because of COVID. The official trading under the AFCFTA was launched on the 1st of January 2021, and some progress have been made until in 2022. As AFCFTA Secretariat, we launched what we call a guided trade initiative. And that guided trade initiative was to see how can we guide the private sector to go through administrative processes and different procedures and export processes to trade within the FCFTA. So the whole concept of guided trade initiative was to establish a checklist which SMEs, small and medium enterprises, can use if they want to export or import products within the FCFTA. We started with the 7 countries in October 2022. Today we have about 35 countries that are already participating in the guided trade initiative. We have 47 countries that have ratified the agreement out of 54 that have signed. Only 1 country has not signed the agreement yet. But out of those 54 who have signed, 47 have already ratified, which confirms that they are legally ready to start implementing their commitments. And out of those 47, 35 of them are already facilitating trade. When we say they are facilitating trade, it means if you import goods from Africa to those countries, you will get a tariff reduction. The prospect of FCFTA is that we can trade at least at 50% in terms of intra-African trade. Currently, it is estimated at 20%. And secondly, the type of products we'll be trading amongst ourselves for now, there is a huge potential to industrialize if we trade amongst ourselves, because more than 40% of what we trade amongst Africa are added products, added value products, those products that have been processed. So we export raw materials. But when we trade amongst ourselves, even the little we trade amongst ourselves, we trade in added value products. So which gives us potential to industrialize, create jobs, and also increase the volume of trade, and also bridge the gap of trade balance deficit that we already have.
Now, still on intra-Africa trade, one of Malawi's commercial banks, FDH Bank, is in partnership with Afrexim Bank to see facilitation of trade among small and medium entrepreneurs in the country. FDH Bank Managing Director Nonkulichi says about 150 SMEs have already been reached out to through the facility to enhance trade with other partners across the continent.
This initiative is relatively different from the normal initiatives in the sense that, for example, for the SMEs, usually when we give them facilities, we would usually require collateral, but in this particular case, it will be done differently because this one is more of a guarantee that will guarantee to those facilities, and we expect that SMEs and indeed the corporates are going to utilize it to the fullest and also enjoy the benefits of economies of scale. What we want is to disperse 10 million US dollars worth of guarantees, and we believe that we should be able to cover all these SMEs, including the corporates, and as a result of that, we should be able to meet their requirement needs, the credit facility needs. If you heard correctly in the presentation, there is a possibility that Malawi and in fact a lot of other countries are going into a partnership with PAPS. This is Pan-African Payment System. And as a result of that, what we expect is that this will be quite sustainable because the issues of using Forex, like the dollar, will not be a thing of concern in this particular case. Instead, each country is going to use its own local currency, and settlement will be done in the other country in their own local currency. So I believe this is going to be something quite sustainable. Of course, as we stand now, Malawi is not yet part of and is not yet a member of the PAPS. But going forward, we believe that there will come a time when the central bank is going to also, look at this one and say we need to be part of that process. We want to reach out as many businesses as possible, mindful that this is an initiative where we're going to do business differently from the way we normally do. I've already talked about the issue of the collateral issues, that in this particular case we will not be requesting the bank, the SMEs to provide us with any collateral. Instead, it will be the guarantee that is going to come in. And we also believe that the likes of Mike, the likes of EDF, will also join the bandwagon to also provide further collaboration in terms of providing the guarantees.
Now, Anne Rose Ngemu is one of the senior managers at Afrexim Bank. In this interview, she shares the rationale behind the partnership with FDH Bank and other like-minded commercial banks in the continent, and how the Afrexim Bank Secretariat is moving towards enhancing trade among African countries.
We've put in together the Africa Trade Gateway, which is a suite of digital services, and we are working with banking partners who are our partners in other initiatives at the bank. So FDH is part of the partner groups that we've started working with, and today it was us exposing the Africa Trade Gateway capabilities and what it can do to the export-import community who are customers of FDH Malawi to the ecosystem. First, it's an end-to-end trading ecosystem. So what we are looking at is really activating economic activities, not just for Malawi, but for all the member states. Like I mentioned, the Trade Gateway is working with banking partners across Africa and internationally. So we see that by doing this and getting it right with our partners, we will activate a lot of economic activities, which then translate to the dollar value. So it may not be how much money we are putting in it. Of course, from an investment perspective, we put quite a lot. And that's why we believe that the economic activities that will be spurred through this trade gateway will be enormous for the different member countries. For businesses, of course, is the ability to do more, because we are now giving businesses in Malawi an opportunity to connect with businesses in other African countries and the Caribbean, because we also have a Caribbean region that I'm also covering as part of the gateway. From banking partners, this is the first bank that has come on board as FDH Malawi, but of course we are exposing the gateway to all the banking partners. So it's a participation ecosystem. So we are not forcing banks to come on board, but we think it's a good thing for banks to take what we've already invested in is ready for their customers.
Remember, this is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. We'll be right back, and when we get back, we look at challenges that key players in the agriculture sector are facing when accessing finance, among other things, and how they can be addressed going forward. Welcome back. This is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. My name is Kumwembe. And moving on with the program, lack of access to finance is one of the challenges that industry players have been lamenting over time. One of the key sectors for the economy is agriculture, and players therein still say that they still have challenges in as far as access to finance is concerned. This was said at the weekend when the Malawi Investment Trade Center engaged some of the local manufacturers and other industry players at an engagement that is necessitated to see growth of their participation in economic activity. Our journalist Kumwembe was there and filed this report.
Director at Koran Farming Limited, Stuart Ross, said commercial banks in the country have not been interested in the agriculture sector.
Our project has now we've come quite a long way along. Along the way, finance has always been a problem. The commercial banks are not weren't interested in the agricultural sector. We're able to access funding from Mike and EDF. None of the commercial banks came forward. Along the way, we applied for grant funding from MITC and UNDP, and we finished that project December 2021. TV Malawi was there, and we launched the project. That project is still going, and what happens is that we extract about 500,000 litres a day out of Lake Malawi, which is a wonderful resource of fresh water, and I'm very surprised that it hasn't been utilised like we're utilising, because 500,000 litres a day sounds a lot of water, but it's a tiny little pinprick from what we actually extract. That water goes into storage, goes around our crocodile farm into our dam. It's now fertilised. We pump the nutrient water onto the smallholders. They've got a dam, and they gravity feed onto their crops. They're getting 3 crops a year out of it. And when I was there last, one of the chairman of the Namakoma Community Trust, he said, came out of his field, and he said to me, Mr. Ross, he says, you know, in Malawi there may be starvation this year, but here in Namakoma there'll be no starvation because of current farming. So it's a very good project. We're going to expand it. At the moment we do 2,000 crocodile skins a year. We export it to Italy, and we're looking to expand that to 10,000 skins. So that's earning valuable foreign exchange for Malawi, as well as promoting the community. We're probably looking in the region of $600,000 revenue. When we get to capacity, we'll be looking at about $5 million a year. But I think what you've got to understand is it's a very regulated industry. We had to get accredited by a organization called ICFA, which stands for the International Crocodilian Farmers Association. Our buyers in Italy, a company called White Line, they go around about 54 farms worldwide in a year. We are one of 8 accredited farms in Southern Africa and one of 42 worldwide. And he reckons that we're one of the best farms he's ever been to. So from a Malawi point of view, we're on the map.
But MITC Chief Executive Officer Paul Kumwembe says since 2022, investments picked up, registering a record $2 billion in a single year.
I brought this idea to have this investor engagement so that we can have a proper interface between domestic investors and people who are able to finance, promote their projects, so that they have a chance to make sure that whatever projects they have in Malawi can still materialize within our borders by financiers who are in Malawi and interested in those different projects. Most times the investors complain about financing, partnership, and obviously joint ventures. And we're looking at a meeting where we can have investors talk among themselves, we can have investors talk with the financiers, and then come up with different partnerships so that they can actually improve their projects. There's some people who have got small projects which banks might not really feel comfortable to entertain. So by coming together, you might have a bigger project which the bank might be interested in.
Among other things, investors have expressed concern over the tax regime, foreign exchange shortages, and volatility of the kwacha, among other things.
Now, in other business news, local revenue collection body, the Malawi Revenue Authority, says it is positioned to make the most of the one border post in as far as maximizing revenue collection is concerned. Journalist Kumwembe Mangazi has the whole story.
MRA Marketing Communications Manager Wilma Chaluru says currently over 70 trucks of goods weighing about 30 tons each cross the border every day, translating to over 2,100 tons in a day. She adds that on average the border makes 18 billion kwacha in customs revenue.
Mwanza border, which is our #1 border station in terms of value and volume and traffic that comes through the border. So we wanted to appreciate what goes on there, because also Mwanza border is also one of the customs borders that brings in most of the revenue. So we wanted to appreciate what happens there, how our goods processed, how our passengers processed, so that we want to understand what happens at the border. What I can say is that on average we get about 70 trucks or 70 trucks, I can say trucks, and those trucks bring in on average about 30 tons a day. So you can extrapolate that, so you can say if it is 70 trucks of 30 tons each, so it means it's about 2,100 tons in a day. So in a month we are looking at Mwanza border brings in an average of about 18 billion in terms of revenue.
MRA Deputy Commissioner Moses Masina adds that since inception, the Blantyre Inland Examination Facility has contributed customs revenue averaging 60 billion kwacha annually on the back of its proficiency in detecting technical smuggling.
The Inland Examination Center is a special facility that is recognized internationally in all customs administrations. Basically, what the Inland Examination Center right here in Blantyre does, it does inspections of containers that are entering the country through Mwanza, Deza, as well as Songwe. Basically, when the containers arrive here, our officers are given time to do the inspections to verify what has been declared at the border, to ensure that there's compliance in terms of the customs and excise law. So basically, when the goods arrive here, our officers cross-check the quantities, the quality of the declarations. At the same time, what we've seen after the establishment of the Inland Examination Center from 2022, there's been a lot of increase in terms of revenue, because we give our officers room that they can conduct the inspections in an appropriate environment, whereby results are able to come through. At the same time, the Inland Examination Center has made it possible that we can have minimal time in doing inspections, because we have space here, but we also have tools like forklifts that assist us to do the examinations in timely manner. Technical smuggling is a big issue in MRI, and one of the reasons why we established this inspection center is to mitigate against the technical smuggling. What we've noted is that after the establishment, or even prior to the establishment, there's a lot of technical smuggling that are taking place, whereby people under-declare goods, people also falsify their invoices. So what this Inland Examination Center has brought in is that it brought in this sense of accountability to make sure that whatever goods are being brought here, we have to do the inspections and verify to make sure that the technical smuggling is not taking place. At the same time, when it is discovered or when it is detected, we penalize importers through issuance of penalties, but at the same time, we also demand from them to account for the goods that they didn't pay at the border through payment of duties.
In the 2024-2025 national budget, tax revenues are estimated at 3.26 trillion kwacha.
On that note, we've also come to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time. It is a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, my name is William Kumwembe. But always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Stay safe and goodbye for now.